Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? I know you can't respond, but great that you're all here to join us for your Edcover webinar looking at the quality of cover lessons in our schools. I'm Anthony McBride, your host for the meeting. I'm going to start with an apology. Obviously, you'll be aware that originally we were supposed to be meeting together at Lliswerry High School. Unfortunately, personal circumstances have meant that I just simply couldn't travel from Yorkshire to Wales. Was the pity for me on this particular day. So we thought that holding the webinar would be the next best thing. I think it'll certainly be worthwhile use of your time. And if anything, it will be a little bit shorter than the original format was planned for. So I am delighted that we are joined by Andrea Rose-Phelps from Lliswerry High School. Hopefully, in a few minutes, we'll hear from Andrea and about their implementation of Edcover and what the main benefits have been for Lliswerry High School. A little bit of housekeeping, guys, before we start. Just to begin with, you'll notice that you're muted. You're all muted other than myself and Andrea. We do welcome your questions throughout the session, though, and you can submit these via the button at the bottom of your right-hand screen. There's a button. This might be a question for myself or indeed for Andrea. What we will do, we'll collate these as we go along, any questions that you've got, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the session. Originally, I did have a group work activity planned for you that was going to last about 10 minutes. That was in the original format, though, so I've removed that. So we'll be at least 10 minutes shorter than we originally thought. So I'm sure that, again, is welcome news to all of, if not many of you. So we will, during the course of the webinar, have a tour of the Edcover platform, and I will give you some information about how, if you like what you see, you'll be able to access a free trial of the platform due to your attendance today. That's not something we generally do for schools anymore. We did do this 6 months ago, free trials, but it's pretty well established now. So it's not something we automatically do, but we'd be happy to offer that to any schools that are with us today. Before we get into that detail then of looking at the platform itself, I'd like to quickly give you some background as to who we are and the rationale that led us to create Edcover. So, as I said earlier on, we're based up in Yorkshire. Our organisation, we're really proud of the history that we've got in creating some really groundbreaking software solutions for schools. So, for example, I'm pretty certain that quite a few of the schools that have joined us in Wales this afternoon, they're also using SMID to support their tracking of pupil progress, etc. So that's us as well. And we're really, really, again, proud of the working relationship that we've got with secondary schools in Wales. So Edcover is our latest offering for schools. We're really, really excited about it, not least because of the wonderful feedback that we're having thus far. So, as former leaders in secondary schools themselves, the directors at Edcover, they were really familiar with this negative association between cover lessons and learning. Indeed, there's lots of evidence, formal and anecdotal, to support what for me is a pretty logical hypothesis. When the regular class teacher isn't present, isn't in the classroom, then usually learning and progress will suffer. And on the right hand side of your screen, we've got some of the potential reasons, contributory factors as to why that might be. But for me, none of these can be seen in isolation. So if we took the first one, for example, behaviour, in our discussions with schools, when they're being really frank, they will concede that often behaviour deteriorates during cover lessons. Now, for me, this is inextricably linked with the quality of work set. And we're all educators, so we know that children will behave well when they're in a lesson that's worth behaving for. In other words, our pupils, they're not daft, are they? They know if they're in a cover lesson and the standard of work that's been left isn't what they deserve. So that's not fair on them, of course it's not, but even more so, I would argue, it's because we've all been there, or a lot of us have been there. It's not fair on the person stood at the front trying to deliver that lesson. So that's another factor. Next, we've got subject knowledge. Now, for me, this doesn't have to be a biggie. It doesn't have to be an issue, because I've covered many's a lesson over the years in a subject I knew little or nothing about, and I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed that hour or 50 minutes, providing, and it's a huge caveat, providing the work that that teacher's left was suitable, was worthy of the lesson. Next, we've got consistency. So again, this relates to the previous points. If pupils know that in your school, when they walk into a cover lesson, it's going to be a worthwhile use of their time, it's going to be a good learning experience, they'll enter into that lesson in the right mindset. Of course they will. And finally, we've got succession. And what I'm alluding to there is the communication, or rather lack of it, if we're honest, between the covering staff member and the absent teacher. How often does that happen? And again, if we're honest, it doesn't really happen, because simply we're too busy. Unless something, unless there's a big issue, something really, dramatically bad happens in the cover lesson, there's usually no communication between the two members of staff. And I really think, and we at Edcover believe, that there should be, because the regular class teacher needs to know how the class has progressed, were there any misconceptions, etc., etc. So our challenge was to create a solution that combated these points, that dealt with all of this, while, if we could, simultaneously easing the burden on teachers. So our aim was to make things easier, to streamline how cover was delivered, and make life better for not just teachers, but for cover managers as well. So what we did initially was collaborate with a number of secondary schools, and they helped us to shape Edcover, what it looks like today. And the result, I think, is a really modern one-stop solution, one that optimizes learning, promotes dialogue, and it gives leadership teams, and we're learning this all the time from your feedback, it gives leadership teams a really clear look, an insight into what cover lessons are like in their school. What is the efficacy of cover lessons in our school, and how do we evidence that? So you might ask, why is this important? Personally, I think it's crucial, because that we do what we can to get this right, particularly if we consider that 4 to 5% typically of a secondary school pupils' education will be delivered in what we call commonly cover lessons. So it is important that we do what we can to try and get it right. Now, as I said earlier on, I'm delighted that we're joined today by Andrea at Lliswerry High School. So what I'd like to do at this point is just bring Andrea in and ask her a couple of questions that might, I suppose, give you a bit more of an insight as to what Edcover looks like in a school. So first of all, Andrea, if it's okay with you, can I ask what impact Edcover has had at Lliswerry High School, particularly in your role? How's it impacted on your role on a daily basis?
So my role within, hi everybody, my role within the school is to do the cover manager, and it's just made my life easier because I can quickly check at a glance if the cover work's set. I actually do cover remotely at home, so I'm able to drop my children to school, then I come into school. So I'm not in the school to chase around, chasing people for cover, so I can quickly check at a glance, is the cover work being set from home remotely, and I can see all the work's been set, or I can chase the leader of learning or the teacher to make sure that the cover work's then set and uploaded to Edcover. So that just saves me so much time, energy and stress in the morning when it's already quite stressful if you've got multiple amounts of staff off. So that makes it a lot easier.
Fantastic. Andrea, thank you. Well, it's stressful enough doing the school run as well. So
yeah.
If we can eliminate any stress, brilliant. Thank you for sharing that with us. Next, I'd like to ask, particularly at Lliswerry High School, obviously that's where your insights are, but how well did your staff adapt to this new method of doing cover?
So Surprisingly, they adapted really well. We launched it. I'd given them a lot of notice that we were going to launch this new system, showed them the video that you provided, and Edcover provided the video, shared that with staff, and then we launched it on, I can't remember what day, but on a particular day, and everybody embraced it. They logged in, they created their accounts, and they were amazed at how easy it was to upload their cover work. Because prior to that, we had paper boxes in the staff room labeled 1 to 5 for each lesson. So they'd have to, go from their classroom, which might have been another part of school, up to the staff room, put the cover work in. Sometimes the wrong cover work would be taken. So then the cover supervisor would go, the work wasn't there because somebody else has picked it up. So for them, it was just, this is actually much better. They could then improve on the work that they were setting. They could link to videos rather than typing in, you need to go to this part of the staff share to find this file, which some people couldn't always get to. It was uploaded, it's all uploaded. The videos are uploaded, any links are uploaded, PowerPoint presentations, and then the content of what's to be delivered is all there. So they embraced it. And actually a lot of people have been here quite a long time. So I thought I might have had some issues getting them to use it, but not at all. Really embraced it well.
Oh, great. No, that's lovely for me to hear personally. And I'll pass that on to the team. I mean, every school's got a different way of doing cover. You had your boxes named labeled 1 to 5. In my last school, we either emailed it in or put it in the shared drive. And again, there were complications there, accessing the shared drive and things like that. Thank you. And I've got one more question. I think you've partially, if not fully, answered it. And it was going to be, have you seen a discernible improvement in the quality of cover lessons at Lliswerry?
Yes, I have. And I actually asked the deputy head for her feedback a few minutes ago. And she said that she loves that she gets feedback automatically to her inbox, because that's sent from the cover team direct and supply teachers, because we all are external and internal people who cover lessons use Edcover. Also, she said the lessons are more purposeful. She doesn't feel there's any gaps in the learner's progress, because they'll pick up from where they've left off. They're not set in a paper task or printouts. They can actually put in their planned work into Edcover. So the feedback, and they get the feedback, and they get feedback on the learners. They can then as well go back to a child and say, actually, you didn't do what you were asked to do in that lesson. So I think for the children as well, they know the cover lesson, even though it might be a cover teacher, the work's been set, and I'm going to get feedback from my teacher. So that's slightly changed how the children think about things as well.
Absolutely. Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. So as I say, if you've got any questions for Andrea, we can address them at the end as well. So I suppose that brings us neatly on to having an actual look at the Edcover platform itself. I think if we do that, we'll bring some of Andrea's experiences to life for you. Before we do that, I'll just very quickly show you the Edcover website. This is just the information website, so you can have a look at this at any point. We won't spend any time here today. You can also contact us through the website. For me, I mean, about us, this is about, we know that staff absence is inevitable, be it through illness or planned absence. And the issue for us as leadership teams is, when that happens, how do we make sure the cover lesson is as good as it can be? Moreover, how do we evidence that? And lastly, how can we possibly achieve that while making life better for teachers and cover managers? How can we reduce the work burden at the same time? So without further ado, I'll log in to the Edcover platform as if I was a teacher in your school. Now, this requires a bit of imagination on your part. So you will all have in your school an MIS system. It might be the common ones. The most common ones tend to be Arbor and Sims and Bromcom, ISAMs. There are others. So if you've got another one, we will still sync with that. So basically, our platform Edcover syncs with your MIS system. And that means you don't have to worry about the setup. It pulls through all your class timetables, teacher timetables rather, class lists, and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do now is just log in, imagining I'm a basic user in a school, a teacher. So if I do that, you will see that the very first screen a teacher sees is pretty boring. It's pretty bland, but it's very simple. And everything about Edcover is very simple and intuitive. So as a teacher, I can set cover work or I can search for it because I might actually be covering a colleague's lesson. What I want to do first of all is just show you how quick and easy it is to set cover work. So if we click the green button, of course, we might be setting cover work for ourselves. It might be a planned absence, but it may well be the case that we have to set cover on behalf of a colleague. So if Anne, for example, is in my department, I might be a line manager, she's simply too poorly to set her own work, I can do that for her. So if we click on Anne, what it does, it goes away to the MIS and it pulls up her lessons for today. Okay, so what that's doing, immediately that's reassuring because it's removing any possibility of human error. We can't miss a lesson. Okay, she's got 4 lessons today, as you can see. Now, if Anne were doing this herself and it's a planned absence, she might say, okay, well, I've got year 8 residential from there to there, and it'll go away and find all the lessons that she's got to set cover work for. Okay. Let's leave it on today, just for ease of use. So if we go to the next screen, again, nice and clean and clear, we can very clearly see that there are 4 lessons that we need to set cover work for. And we know that because a big red button saying no work set. Okay, so what I'd like to do is just show you how intuitive this is. Let's add some cover work for period 1. So straight away, it brings you to this screen, and we've put a pro forma in here, a lesson plan that you don't have to use. You could get rid of that altogether if you didn't want it, or it might be that you've got a branded lesson plan pro forma that you want uploading to this page. Again, that's fine. We can do that for you. So if we've got a pre-prepared lesson, we could just drop it in here. And increasingly, schools are saying it would be helpful if you put your seating plan in as well, so the covering teacher knows where the pupil should be sat, so on and so forth. And there's buttons across the top that if you've got a pre-prepared lesson, you can make it look fancy and pretty with titles, etc. I'm not going to bore you now with doing that. What I'm going to do is show you a button, a function that is creating quite a stir. It's having tremendous feedback and response from our schools, and it's this button up here in the top right hand corner. It says AI assistant. Okay, so we're all becoming more and more familiar with AI, but what this does is really simplify it for me, because I'm not actually a very techie person. My background is in RE, guys, so what I'm going to do is give the Edcover AI assistant a very generic command. Just kind of yesterday I created a lesson on Passover, so I'm not going to do that again. Today I'm just going to say create let's say a year 10 lesson on, I'm going to ask it for Aquinas's just war theory or principle. Okay, so that's a very generic. I could be a lot more specific, but I'm just going to ask it to create a lesson on that. So when I click go, it will go away and it will use another project of ours, My School AI, and in a few seconds it will come up with what is always, for me, a pretty phenomenal cover lesson. Okay, and it does that in seconds. We do say check the content. Okay, but if you just have a quick scan through this, you'll see straight away we've got a brilliant cover lesson. It always gives you 2 or 3 YouTube video suggestions, short ones. They're not going to take the whole, 4 or 5 minute videos. And if we check it, we want to use it all, we can just copy it all across, and that becomes our cover lesson. Okay, so there it is. And as I say, we might just want to use one of these videos, so we could get rid of that one and potentially get rid of that one. I know from past experience that video in the middle, that's a belter when it comes to Aquinas' just wall theory. So when we're happy, all we do is we scroll down to the bottom. We scroll down to the bottom of the screen here and we save our lesson. And that's us done, okay? So if we go back to that previous screen where we knew we had 4 lessons to set cover work, the first one's done. We know it's done because we've got a big tick there and the work is set, and we know we've got 3 more to do. Now, the point I'm trying to make, folks, is that in a few seconds, I've created what for me is a great cover lesson. It could be potentially delivered by a non-specialist, and the beauty of it is that our developers have put all the prompts into AI, so we know we're not getting misconceptions. We know we're not getting anything inappropriate, so on and so forth. Okay. Another benefit is that over time, every cover lesson that is created will be banked as a resource. So that obviously grows over time, and that will be a valuable resource that grows over time. Now, Andrea, I know that you've not got on to using the AI assistant on. That's perhaps the next thing that you're going to look at for your staff, signposting them to that function. So I think that'll be really exciting for them. And it won't come as any surprise that very quickly teachers spot this as something they can use, not just when they're doing a cover lesson, but why not use it on an everyday basis. So that's how to set cover work. The flip side of that is we're actually teaching this lesson. Okay, so you've told me, Andrea, that I'm covering Anne Wheeler's lesson period 1. So I would log on to Edcover, and I could find her here, or I could find it here. And here it is, period 1. Here's the lesson. It's there. I can deliver it paperless. That's the idea. Now, obviously, we can download a PDF, and increasingly schools like to do that if perhaps they've got an external supply teacher in. So they could print this off and leave it on the desk as well. But ideally, we can just deliver the lesson from our laptop on the board. Okay. Because it's linked with your MIS, we've got the class list here. So we've got all our children. And if you're a permanent member of staff, actually, you get to see sensitive information like who's SEN, EL, etc. If it was an external supply staff member, they wouldn't get to see that. They just have the pupil names. So again, use our imaginations. We've delivered the lesson. It's gone swimmingly because the behavior has been great, discipline as it should be because the content is great. And then somewhere towards the end of the lesson, and this for me, Andrea mentioned it earlier on, feedback. How do we know what's happening in our cover lessons? Well, you as an SLT would decide what is it you want to find out about what's happening in cover lessons. I've just given you 2 examples here, but you could ask up to 4 questions that would hopefully reflect your priorities as a school. So we've got that data feeding into your analytics, and we can also, if we want to, message the absent teacher. We don't have to, but there might be something we need to tell them about succession. You might want to revisit something with a particular pupil, perhaps. Who knows? Okay, so when we're happy with the feedback, we submit it. Anne would get that feedback. She'd get an email with my comment and the feedback. Of course, if Anne was off with stress for 4 months, then we don't want to get in any of that. We'd just disable notifications for Anne. So what I've done there is in a few minutes showed you how Edcover works for a teacher. That's how we set our cover work. That's how we'd access a cover lesson if we were covering a lesson. Now, if we're Andrea or somebody else in school with perhaps on the leadership team, you would probably have a little bit more access. You would have admin rights. And what that does, it gives you further insights as to what's happening in school. So we just asked those couple of questions at the end of that lesson, didn't we? But we get analytics on all of these things. So if we were interested in the feedback, for example, let's go to a year with some data. We can see what the efficacy of cover is like in our school. Okay, we can have a look at it, and we can create a PDF again of this, but wonderful to be able to evidence this to ourselves, to governors, to inspectors indeed. What we're doing is we're saying we take what happens in a cover lesson seriously, and here's the evidence. So everything else that you need to deliver Edcover is along the top, but we're always on the end of the phone as well. But Andrea mentioned staff just watched a couple of videos. They literally watch this video, how to set cover work, and this one. So that's a total of 3.5 minutes, and away they go. It's incredibly intuitive. Equally, whoever's looking after the system, they can manage all their users here. So we said, right, let's, and we don't want to get any feedback, so let's switch off the notifications for Anne. Actually, today we've got 2 external supply teachers coming in, so we can create an account for them on top of, you know, the general accounts that every teacher has. So I'm coming towards the end of that demonstration. Oh, Andrea also, she also said she loved this. So basically, Andrea, when you've done the school run and you've done everything remotely, down the left-hand side, you can see what cover lessons there are for the day. And you need all these to be green with a tick saying work set.
Yes.
Yeah. So once you can see that's all green, you can breathe a sigh of relief and the day's sorted. Just for your information as well, Andrea, if you've any cover lessons that have been created through the AI assistant or otherwise, they will be banked and become a resource in past cover work there. Okay. We can also see analytics on individuals if we want, you know, over time. So what we're seeing is that this does lead pretty immediately to an improvement in the quality of work set, not least because it's so easy to set a great cover lesson. So that has been a real whistle-stop tour of the platform. What I'll do now is go back to my PowerPoint. I will remind you that we're very, very happy to offer anybody today a free trial of the platform. So do get in contact after today if that's something you would like for your school, or if you would like me to have a 20-minute meeting with you to show you a bit more in detail how the platform works. So we're really excited about it. We're having a tremendously positive impact on the cover situation, the quality of cover in a growing number of schools, and we think that's a really worthwhile endeavour. So what I'll do now, before we say goodbye, is check any questions. There might not have been because we've been so comprehensive. Let's have a look. No questions. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it might have meant I've bored you to death, but hopefully that's not the case. So all that remains, colleagues, to do is again apologize that we're not meeting together, having a cup of tea and a biscuit. We will hopefully do that at some point in the future. But I want to thank you today for your attendance, and please do contact us via the website, via the details on your screen if you'd like to find out anything else about Edcover. I'd like to thank particularly Andrea and her colleagues at Lliswerry High School. Thank you, Andrea.
No problem. Can I just say, actually, with the trial, what we did in Lliswerry when you offered that to us quite a while ago now.
Yeah.
We used the trial with just, I think I picked 5 members of staff to do
Right.
the trial with, to get their feedback before we went any further. And their feedback was so positive that that's then when we move forward with it. So it's worth doing a trial with a small number of staff.
Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily have to be everybody.
No, I didn't want to confuse everybody.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for pointing that out. If you did want a trial and have a play with the system, then the trial could be shaped exactly how you want it. Sometimes a school will just roll it out to everybody at once. I think it's very wise to do it like Andrea did. It gives you confidence then to go out to all staff. So it might be with a particular department or a particular year group or whatever. But yeah, thank you for pointing that out, Andrea.
All right.
So have a great afternoon, everybody, and hope to speak soon. Goodbye.